Okay, well, hey everyone, it's a Jupyter community call and Jupyter AI call as well. So, Frontends, server, accessibility, AI, all the good things. Yeah, let's start.
Okay, I've sent the link to the agenda. I believe we are taking notes in the combined call. HackMD. Are there any AI topics to, um, to begin with, or should we just go in the order of the agenda?
Or correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we're doing this vice versa now. We're doing like non-AI topics and then AI topics, but whatever. However you guys want to go about it. I don't, yeah.
Okay.
Think
Oh
that was
yeah,
the idea because AI topics can fill the meeting easily. And so we'll just give everyone else a shot and then take as much time as we can for AI.
that makes sense. So let me start with Jupyter Lab for 4.6.2 and 4.5.10 releases. These include 5 fixes for various security vulnerabilities. They are 2 highs, 2 moderates, and 1 low. And on top of that, in 4.6.2, you will find a couple of nice bug fixes. So yeah, please do upgrade. This should be also of interest to Jupyter Notebook users because some of the vulnerabilities are in the Jupyter Lab Python package. So yeah, upgrading that even if you are not using the lab interface, but you're using the notebook interface, which depends on Jupyter Lab, is recommended. The second point, Jupyter Lab Desktop 4.6.2, there is a release on the way. It's pending one final review, although I might just merge it right after this call. It also will include some security fixes. It's first release in 2 years. So the last one was August 2024. It does upgrade the Jupyter Lab, Electron, and many other dependencies, along bundling a couple of security fixes. Fingers crossed that the release process will go smoothly.
Mike, can I ask a quick question? Because it's tangent to the point that I have below. So, there are a lot of issues being opened on the repo as well by one person, but they're pretty meaningful. And I see that PRs are being merged by you and at least one other maintainer. So, does it mean that you guys are like planning to maintain it consistently on the consistent basis, or is it just something that you want to bump dependencies and that's it? Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So the maintenance here is kind of conditional or on continued interest of users and maintainers. I am happy to continue assisting with the development, and I think past 6 months were really build up of work that enables us to merge PRs confidently and release smoothly. So there was some automation previously, but there were no tests for like the Electron platform or all of that. And the release processes were not very straightforward, or maybe they were appropriate for like 2024, but times changed. There is more risk in running some automations on CI. So yeah, after quite a lot of hardening and improvements to the workflows, I think it will be much cheaper to cut new releases of Jupyter Lab Desktop. But then there is some strategic questions on like, should we bundle things the way we are? Should we I don't think that the installation packages should ever be on the order of 700 megabytes. So maybe there's some deeper changes to be made to Jupyter Lab Desktop, abstracting the choice of Electron as the browser which ships with it. But for now, this release is strictly focused on patching the known security vulnerabilities and updating dependencies.
Awesome, thank you.
Mike, thank you so much for working on these security advisories, by the way. I know that this is absolutely no easy feat. I've patched a few other security advisories before, and like everyone has taken me multiple days. And I really just want to let you know, I really appreciate all of the effort there. Funny thing, for the first GHSA in that list, I was actually the person who wrote that email on our side. Is it all right if I just add myself as a reporter there? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
So,
all right.
well, I've checked with the official body from your organization that's reported, and they declined any credit.
Yeah.
But I absolutely fine to add yourself.
Thanks.
I understand that this kind of processes around reporting can
they're like a
abstract
totally
the
separate
human
team.
factor.
Yeah, they're a totally separate team that they don't even talk to me after I write the email. They're just like, write the email, David, we'll send it. And it's like, why can't I just send it? Oh, so another thing is like on our side at Amazon, I can't speak on behalf of all of Amazon because I only work with a small number of service teams relative to like how big the company actually is. But we are going to start using private security reporting from now on. So like I don't know why I think there's been a lot of confusion in the process on our side, but like I basically told people like, hey, look, Jupyter Labs enable private vulnerability reporting. We don't have to write an email and then tell the maintainers to open the GHSA themselves. It's like we can just draft it for you all. So hopefully in the future, like we want to save maintainers time and also like let people contribute directly to the patch. Or at least
So,
propose it.
yeah,
Yeah.
funny that you say that. Maybe, okay, that's a little bit of a tangent, but you mentioned that, working on this security patches can take an entire day or multiple days per one. And that's true. In that case, it took me over a week just to get these things merged. And I'm really annoyed. I cannot express my frustration with GitHub, but maybe I shouldn't on a recorded call. Anyways,
Yeah, I saw this.
Yeah, there were
So
multiple problems with merging, like things do not work. And in part, this is because GitHub is overwhelmed by the number of vulnerability reports, and the GitHub advisory database is not working. The vulnerability advisories that I shared, none of them has a CVE assigned. And like there is some
Really?
expected timeline, which is a couple of days, couple of working days. Now the waiting period is 3 weeks, north of 3 weeks, sometimes multiple months. So that's
Wow.
ridiculous in itself. But this is not fault of kind of like any software issue. It's just that the human team is overwhelmed by how many vulnerability reports are out there. The other problem is that like this process of manual human review can sometimes lead to issues. And on top of that, the PRs from the security private forks, we could not merge them. Like I was literally pressing the merge button and it was giving me 500, and then it was giving me unicorns, and then it was giving me 500 again. About an hour ago, I got a message from the GitHub team who maintains this experience. They came back to me saying that, hey, this was actually 3 different bugs on their end, and like they patched everything in production now. So hopefully this will work. But given this experience, I opened the issue number 126 on the Jupyter Security repository for us to consider whether long-term we want to stay with GitHub for advisory publication and CVE assignment. Very briefly, it is possible for an open source project to become a CNA, so an authority which assigns CVEs. But it's a cost, and there is many projects which do that. There is Python Software Foundation, Apache, Eclipse, etc. But yeah, it's a discussion for another meeting. It's just something that this is one option. The other option is we could move to GitLab and have private forks over there. In any case, I don't think we will ever want to move the private security reporting of GitHub, because there's just where everyone is. But yeah, I'm highlighting that this experience was really frustrating and took a lot of my time. So there are conversations that we need to have around the community on how do we proceed if this situation continues to be more of a waste of time of maintainers than useful.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, there's a lot of steps in the process that kind of waste maintainers' time. I think like one of the biggest factors is like parsing like a lot of vulnerability reports are completely AI generated. Like what we've done on our side is like I make sure that every report we send like to the open source maintainers is absolutely reviewed and written by a human. But like a lot of other people aren't doing that. Um, I haven't run into the private fork issue myself, but the last time I've like opened a security patch was months ago, so I didn't experience that bug. Uh, really, really unfortunate that that happened. I think for the CNA, I'm not like too worried about it. I mean, like the CP taking a few weeks to assign, that definitely sucks, but like I think a good number of GHSA stay open for longer than a few weeks. So as long as we just like request this a CVE ID as fast as we can, then like as early as possible, then I think we're good there. At least for now, it just seems like the juice isn't worth the squeeze there. Um, the last thing, like for security forks, I guess like if that feature doesn't work, the way it generally works is like we patch and then release the patch and then publish the GHSA, right? That's how it usually works. Yeah, like to me, there's still always going to be a gap between like when people see the security advisory versus like when when the patch is published. Um, so like I think it's fine to do it in a public PR. Like the only difference is like the vulnerability is technically out in the open like 30 minutes earlier, but that is like that is what it is, right? Like there's no other way to do it. You have to patch it first before you publish it. So
Yeah, so this works for kind of smaller repos, and at some point of scale of a monorepo, it becomes really annoying when you have multiple security
yeah.
patches which, yeah, potentially conflict with each other. Anyways, yeah,
Yeah.
let's pick up this topic on a security meeting.
Yeah. It's been hard for me to join those because it's at like 7:30 Pacific, but yeah, I might set up some time with you to go over them. Yeah, sorry for the segue. I think you have more updates too. I see a lot of PRs here that need
Yeah.
reviews. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me put some links in the chat. One of them is about speeding up large streams of texts, especially when they are generated. It's been open for a while, and in part it's because it was initially hard to write, but I will not like I cannot overstate how important, like how much of a change it is with an access to LLMs. Working on patches like that, which are pretty fundamental and touch on the rendering pipeline, is so much easier. So a couple of months back when I stopped working on this PR, I stopped in part because I was not confident that the gains that we get are worth the maintenance cost. But today I believe that the maintenance cost is so low, and with further work I would manage to squeeze even more performance gains. This is like a huge win. So basically what it does is you will never ever see the interface stutter when you have a stream of large text in an output of a cell. And furthermore, when you try to select something and there's a new chunk of text coming from your kernel, it will not remove the selection. It will actually preserve it. The only cost is that when opening a notebook with lots of outputs that were previously streamed, the links can show up a fraction of a second, like less than 1% usually of the time later than they would show without it. So this is my call to basically for everyone who is interested in the speed up to review that PR. I think it's pretty. I think it is worth it. I know that's a lot of code, but yeah, throw whatever LLM you have at it or your eyeballs if you prefer. I did both, and please give me some signal. I would really like to see that merged. The other PR is on, well, actually relevant to Jupyter AI, and it's meant to resolve the problem of LLMs having problem deciding when to escape dollars, which in the Markdown renderer of Jupyter Lab, and not only Jupyter Lab, on GitHub as well, would start an inline map segment for LaTeX to render. So if you have $2 amounts in the same sentence, you will have a text rendered as an equation, which is contrary to the intent. So there is a question for that pull request on whether we should extend the API slightly and allow to clone the renderer. So not to clone, to change the options of typesetter. That would make it possible to reuse any typesetter, whether like by default we use Marjax, but some people can have KTeX installed. So yeah, this is my question. Like, does anyone have an opinion on how much of an API expansion is too much, or whether the changes in this PR are good enough, and kind of we should stop at this rather than other additional methods?
Yeah, thanks for opening this. I have like a couple of small comments. I was just reviewing this like in the last 20 minutes. But overall, it looks great to me. Like my comments are not blocking. Like I think this is a great change. I like the fact that the default behavior is not changed. Everything is purely optional. Um, yeah, and like it's up to each renderer, which I think is great because like we want, I think for notebooks, we can't change that experience, right? People are too used to using like dollar signs to delimit LaTeX, but like I think it makes a lot of sense to for Jupyter AI when we use the LaTeX renderer. Like I think we should just let dollar signs be typed as is, and just have like some kind of skill or system prompt to tell AI to like format its response correctly. Yeah, thanks for working on this.
Yeah, so I am not actually ruling out changing this on per notebook or per cell basis. I just don't want to do it right now, and definitely don't want to change the default. Like that, there are jabs which discuss different Markdown flavors, and maybe as part of that, we could change how we parse math out of Markdown. But yeah, that's not the priority right now. The priority, I think, is to allow any extensions that provide AI experience to just not have to do any tricks or monkey patches around the renderer with escaping dollars, so that like this just works after a simple toggle of an option.
Just to confirm, this is only for library use. There's no setting for this, so you can. Yeah.
Yes. So in the PR as it is, there is no user-facing setting. There's no way for user to take advantage of that. It's exclusively for extension authors. Okay. So the next pull request I wanted to highlight is the debugger console. Let me show my screen. Okay. So this is about completions, and again, there is some speed up and other improvements. So basically, the current implementation of the debugger console, which shows up when you try to evaluate codes at a breakpoint, was using Python-specific code to evaluate, it was pulling IPython completer with all of the trie machinery and trying to complete the text under the cursor using that, which was very heavy, very slow, and didn't work with any other language. So this PR is first using what debugger adapter protocol already has, which is the completion request, and that is faster because it doesn't pull Jedi. Second, it is still using the IPython completion, but only for things which are not implemented in DApp. This would be completion of dictionary keys, of keyword arguments, of a function, signatures, things like that, and file paths. Second, there's lots of reliability improvements, and it's clean. It does not pollute the frame, does not pollute the namespace of variables. So yeah, that's ready for review. If anyone is interested, we'll send a link to that as well. And a final PR that I wanted to mention is, again, performance related. This is trying to avoid re-rendering the buttons when we switch tabs. And it does that, but the gain is very minimal. So I'm actually not that set on getting this PR merged. And if someone goes there and decides that, okay, this is benchmark, this is not important, but this is the relevant code, decides that this memorization is too much, and we like maintaining this requires remembering to skip certain properties. If you folks decide that it's not worth this minimal speed up, I'm totally okay with just dropping this PR. But yeah, technically it does improve performance a little bit. Okay. Sorry about dumping so many PRs at once. Okay. Question. Do we want to have generic rules in ESLint plugin? So Jupyter ESLint plugin allows us to catch things in TypeScript code which are specific to Jupyter plugins, Jupyter Lab. That's the core pitch. But when we are trying to improve the linting of Jupyter Lab code base, for example, by toggling some TypeScript settings, we found ourselves hitting a wall a couple of times because for example, unchecked index access TypeScript option is an easy solution for when you have an array which potentially can be empty and are accessing the first index, so square bracket 0, assuming that there will be something, but then get a runtime error, and TypeScript is not protecting you from that unless you enable no unchecked index access. The problem with enabling it, though, is that it has lots of false positives and it cannot handle certain function signatures. So we thought, hey, what if we just written a custom rule, not on the TypeScript checker level, but on the ESLint level. And we have so far 2 rules like that. The question is, do they belong in this Jupyter ESLint plugin? Do they belong in Jupyter Lab? Would anyone else be interested in having these rules reused for their extensions? And I'm not sure here because quite often extensions follow a bit looser requirements for linting and type checking. So yeah, I just wanted to see if anyone here would be interested. And I would definitely say yes, I will use such a rule if it's more useful than annoying.
I don't know how shipping these works. That you can ship them and they are disabled by default, right? And you have to opt into them by enabling them. That will work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We do ship so in the ESLint plugin for Jupyter, we do have a couple of rules which are not enabled in the recommended set, and we only enable them for Jupyter Lab specifically because we think that it is useful for core. Core has to be very strict and bulletproof, but extensions might not benefit as much, and authors might be just a bit annoyed. So yeah, probably that would be outside of the recommended set.
Yeah, and there's also things like you can disable them, or you can enable them as a warning, or you can change the severity, right? So
yes, it's basically error, warning, or disabled. There is no hint in ESLint, unfortunately.
Yeah, so if it's useful for Jupyter Lab and could potentially be useful for others, I don't see why we couldn't ship it, but I wouldn't necessarily enable it by default, just because it's extra strictness. And as you say, suddenly stuff breaks if they just pull this in.
Okay, there's lots of other PRs that need to be reviewed, and there is a lot of proposed changes to the UX. I didn't have time to list all of them, and I don't think it would be very useful for this meeting, but just wanted to highlight 2 recent ones, 2 proposals. One is adding the cell ID, exposing cell ID in the sidebar. That would allow you to potentially, change the cell ID to know what cell you are editing, and that might be useful for kind of AI applications where you are actually when the agent is referring to cells by ID. And 3, the proposal here is to also add a copy button, which copies an anchor. And then when you paste that anchor in another tab or use that as a link from another notebook, it will scroll to that cell. So it's actually, I think it's quite surprising that there was no place in the UI where cell IDs would be available. But yeah, this is it. This is now like a proposal. If anyone has opinions, please do review this PR. Link in the chat. It's 19197. And there's another one about enabling a toolbar visibility toggle. But yeah, I will not go into the detail here.
Mhm. Hey, thanks for linking to the cell ID PR. This is really helpful for debugging when working on like AI extensions because like a lot of AI tools rely on the cell ID to make edits and run them. I'm just curious, like what's like the overall status of cell IDs? Like, does every cell get them now by default? Because I think like when like 2 or 3 years ago, I think there was like some confusion, like some cells had IDs and some didn't. Does every cell get a new ID now?
So no, yes and no. Yes, every cell in the Jupyter Lab interface in the recent versions will have an ID. No, not every notebook on GitHub will have cell
Yeah.
IDs because this was only introduced in the latest version of NB format, if I'm not wrong. I think what happens when opening a notebook right now, which is using an older NB format, is that we will upgrade to the latest version and add these cell IDs, but I might be wrong.
That's awesome. Yeah, we should have a test for that. I guess that would live in empty format, right? Um,
It is in the required entry. So if you are publishing something that doesn't have cell IDs with NB format 4.5, you are wrong.
nice. Awesome. Yeah, I left just one small comment on that PR, Mike, but
I just
otherwise
have a
I think it
comment
was good.
about cell IDs. I've been working with an extension that really needs cell IDs. And here's the thing I discovered in a painful way that may or may not still be the current policy. I copied a notebook from the olden days from a Git repo somewhere, and it happened to be an NB format 4.4 notebook before cell ID was part of NB format as a required attribute. And the behavior in Jupyter Lab was not to silently upgrade it to NB format 4.5. It was instead to create dynamic IDs on the fly in the client. And then when you come back some other time, it had different dynamic IDs on the fly in the client. It was quite unexpected. So I think we may have changed it to what Mike said, but at least as recently as a year ago, when I encountered cell IDs as a thing I needed, that was the behavior. So for quite some time, I was like adding my own cell ID to cell metadata, and it was, barking up the wrong tree because I misunderstood what Jupyter Labs default policy there had been. So we should yeah, we should know. It would be better, I think, to just auto upgrade people to MB format 4.5. I don't think anyone has a strong affinity for their non-cell ID version, so that's sort of what I would advocate the behavior ought to be if it isn't already.
Well, NV format definitely has the capability to do it. Whether we call that code or not, I couldn't tell you. It would be Jupyter Server that does the NB format call, right?
I think
Not necessarily.
I think there's a way, I don't remember, but there was a not that ugly way. Like you can I think you can set MB format on a notebook model in the front end, but then load it from JSON and like overwrite it or something. There might be some way. I didn't think it was happening server side. I thought it was happening client side, where then it changes it, right? But the file change, um, it doesn't get auto saved. So you see the file state become dirty or something like that.
Yeah, I mean the whole thing on all this, there's a couple of spots where there's lenient parsing. We should always be writing strict, but writing strictly and just upgrading someone's thing without asking them. There are important notebooks for organizations that need to run on old things for whatever reason, because some extension that they rely on or wrote themselves was not able to be upgraded. But yeah, I mean, I feel like giving that option to the user to say, we have detected this, and we know how to make the change. The migrations for NB format are currently written in Python, but perhaps if those were, made more declarative, then more clients could implement. So in this case, cell ID, how do I make a cell ID? You get a UUID, right? Like it's not a crazy thing. Other ones could be harder. I mean, it does the cell ID thing, and anybody that's actually built systems that do things beyond just notebooky stuff. Cells should be a dict based on cell ID now that we have it. And that's definitely a major breaking change. Or yeah, there's no way to make it not a major breaking change and then represent order in some other way, either as a linked list or whatever, but that's also powerful.
I just double checked. So in my extension where I ran into this problem, I still offered the choice for the user to opt into using my extension, and upon convert, exactly the trick I pulled was grab the model as a JSON blob and then literally just change that JSON blob's MB format minor to the number 5 and then load it back. And it's compatible. It's not clean. I didn't run any tests, but it seems like it's just totally compatible to literally go change that number. And then I think it's permissive enough upon reading it, if there's no cell IDs there, to just make them because they were already optional. So the file probably shows up in lab and shows up dirty. That's, I think, the trick to it. So we could do this in JavaScript easy. Like if we check it's not there, we could just change it and not even tell them, but it'll be a dirty state. We can change it and pop up a little toast saying, hey, we changed the MB format. If you really don't want it, just don't save the change or something like that. There's ways to do it. I don't think we're doing that though. I think, Mike, unless something's changed, I think what happened to me is happening, not what you originally proposed or said, rather.
Yeah, I'm what I said might be true only for NB format package and not for what happens in lab interface. Yeah, it is good to surface this though as an issue and fix it. So. Okay. I actually thought that there would be more discussion on the toolbar toggle than the cell ID, but happy that we discussed that as well. Andrew, was your point addressed already? I suppose we already talked about Jupyter Lab Desktop.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, I asked like a follow-up question to one of your points, so it's covered. We can skip it. Thank you.
Okay. Eddie, I think you are next.
Hi, yeah, very quick announcement. I'm excited to welcome Isabel, who's on the call today, to the Jupyter Accessibility Council.
Um, yeah. Uh, are there any other topics for the general, any other general topics before we jump into the AI topics? Also, like we're tracking everything in the same meeting notes right now. So yeah, I've just added a short section at the bottom. If anyone has something to bring up, please note it there. You know, it could be anything like a feature request, bug report, like just anything that you think is relevant. Um, yeah. I can, while others might be writing updates, I did want to announce that Jupyter AI v3.1 is coming out this week. I know I originally promised last week, but we ran into a couple of release blockers. Um, I see that Zach Saylor is not on this call. I was really hoping Zach would be here because I do need someone to review a PR in Jupyter Server documents. Um, but yeah, I just have the two most important PRs are the ones that I've linked in the HackMV. One of these is like basically there's a pretty long delay before when the server extension publishes the document awareness. So it turns out the YJS protocol, you need to like manually send the awareness update right after you sync with the client. Um, and we weren't doing that in Jupyter Server documents. So there was quite a bit of a delay. And we use a document awareness channel now to broadcast the list of AI personas available for every chat. So before this fix, it would take a while for them to load. And it turns out like it wasn't because the personas weren't loading fast enough. It's just because like the client wasn't getting that message. So this, I've included a video there in that PR. It fixes the issue. Would love to get that approved and merged. If not, I'll probably just merge it myself. Yeah, like I hope that's not too controversial. Yeah, I think it's challenging because like we have to balance like, of course, we want to allow other people to review, but also like this release has been delayed for like a week or two now. And this is a pretty safe bug fix. The other PR I wanted to call out is removing these unused toolkits from Jupyter AI tools. So the repo has these tools for like editing files and running shell commands, but like there's really no point because these capabilities are provided natively by most agents now. Um, Now that I think about it, there is a slight regression in the sense that like I think JupyterNaut might need these tools. We need to figure out a better story for JupyterNaut. Um, and that's going to really be part of Jupyter AI v3.2, where we kind of make it like this open source framework for building your own custom AI persona. Um, but I think like right now we're just going to say like JupyterNaut support is really on a best effort basis, and like we do want to circle back and improve it. It's just like it requires a lot of work that kind of distracts away from the core Jupyter AI experience we're trying to offer. And there are other open source coding agents that are much, much more reliably maintained. And um, we do want to keep Jupyter not alive. It's just like in this brief transition where we're making a lot of code changes, I think things could be breaking there.
So just
Yeah.
regardless of whether Jupyter not uses it, we are shipping this as like one of those Lego building blocks. So if any other custom personas use these, removing them will break
Mhm.
those, right? Even if they don't use ACP. So
If they
um,
rely on them, yeah.
yeah. So I don't think we need to remove them, but we can remove them from like the default config or whatever.
Yeah. They already are removed from the default config. The tricky thing is like we've gotten a couple of security reports regarding the tools inside of these toolkits. And I think that was like really my main motivation was like, not only is this not used by default, but it's also like got a few potential security gaps. Um, I think it's really challenging because it's like when you have an agent, they can already run arbitrary code. So it's like if you assume prompt injection is a valid vector, then like the entire experience is vulnerable, right? It's one of those things where it's like people will be eager to report security vulnerabilities, but not really think through the whole thought process. Um, Anyways, all that is to say, yeah, I think that's worth thinking about, and that's why I wanted to bring this PR up. If this is not a change that is good for the community, then like we shouldn't make this change. It's mainly I just wanted to like put this out there and see like what are people's thoughts on it.
Yeah, so it depends what kind of release you're doing, right? If you're doing just a patch or minor release, removing them is maybe a little bit aggressive. I don't know if you can if there's like a deprecation mechanism or whatever,
Mhm.
but yeah.
That's a good call. Yeah, we could mark them as deprecated. Um, yeah, until we find a better migration path, because I have a feeling there must be some other like library out there that provides these AI tools, right? So if you're building a custom persona, you should really migrate to those. Um, that's a great call out. Yeah, that might be the right move to make in the short term until we figure out like a migration path for like how do we get people off of these toolkits. Because frankly, like I don't think like we should be like maintaining capabilities are not in the core set of Jupyter AI. Um, it's just like, yeah, like more work for very, very little benefit for 99% of users. Um, with that being said, like, of course, we want to support people who are building custom personas on top of Jupyter AI, right? So it's a balancing act. Um, yeah, that's a good call out. I'll add that as a note. Um, oh, Vidar, I see what you're typing there. Um, so yes, this is absolutely on the roadmap, and we've already made some great changes to generalize the UI to other personas and upstream them into Persona Manager. So, for example, like all of the model selection UI that we have been demoing for Jupyter AI 3.1, all the model selection, setting selection inside the input toolbar, that's all generalized now. So,
Yeah, so tool
one of
approval and all of those things, and
tool approval is the one gap that we need to iron
yeah.
out.
And I
But
think
we,
the beta version or whatever also has like this context.
yeah, it shows the token usage as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I want to show people a demo of the experience, but I don't have my dev environment set
Oh,
up here.
by
But
the way, just as an aside, since to say when I remember it, I saw the latest releases were like beta releases. There's, I think the
mhm.
latest release of Jupyter AI is 301, and then there has been like a 301 beta release after that. Typically, you would bump the version first and then do a beta release of like the next target, because otherwise they kind of sort behind. So when you do pip installs, if you don't do like a full version spec, it kind of doesn't catch it. So it's like a
um,
301 beta release has come out after 301.
it's 310,
Uh,
3.1.0.
oh, did I just misread the numbers? Maybe that's.
Yeah, so the way Jupyter AI versioning works is like basically we're not really so like the core meta package is essentially just a distribution of all the sub packages that we have, and those sub packages follow Semver. And for Jupyter AI, it's mostly the same with a slight difference. And the versioning rule I've
No, no, yeah.
outlined, and this is something we can
No, no, no.
discuss too as a,
It makes sense. I just I think I've
yeah,
misread the numbers, flipped the zero
yeah,
on the one in my head.
yeah, for sure. But like what we're thinking is like the minor releases of Jupyter AI, we raise the dependency ceilings, and then for patch releases, we raise the dependency floors. So we're only API breaking changes should only get pulled in minor releases of Jupyter AI or in breaking changes of one of the sub packages. Um, yeah, it's a little bit tricky. I think we could add more documentation around that. Um, but yeah. Um, yeah, let me add this to the notes.
And also I had thought so, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think it would be really nice if someone from the community would review the API changes, right? Kind of maybe provide
Mhm.
feedback.
Yeah. And the nice thing about like versioning sub packages, like doing this whole sub package split is like we have a lot more discretion in making API changes in like minor releases of the overall distribution. The thinking here is that like if someone needs a stable API for one specific sub package, they need to add that as a requirement in their environment. Um, but for most general users, right, who just want something out of the box, like they don't need to care about API breaking changes really. Um, and even if you use another extension that requires an API, then it's like that extension should have a version range on the subpackage API it needs. So yeah, everything is like reversible. Like if the API is not where it's not to the standard that the community wants, then like we can absolutely improve that. Um, I've also invested some time into setting up a fairly complex submodule documentation build step. Um, this is it's a little bit complicated where like basically the Jupyter AI repo, we clone every sub package and check if they have like a documentation subtree. And then we merge that with the main documentation on when we build for new releases. And the latest release always includes like the latest version of every sub package. So just this is not on the B3 staple documentation yet because Jupyter AI 3.1 is not out, but there is auto-generated Python API documentation for the persona manager now, and for base persona as well. So actually just a base persona. But yeah, like the API for an AI persona is now fully documented. Um, it's split into multiple sections. I just shared the link, but like there's like required methods, recommended methods, optional methods, and then other like base methods are available to subclasses and to consumers respectively. So we have much better documentation on Jupyter AI. It's still a work in progress. Um, with that said, like if anybody would like to volunteer to help out with the Jupyter AI 3.1 documentation changes, please let me know. I'd love to work with someone on this because it's actually a lot of work to do this every release. Um, but yeah, like otherwise, like I'm not gonna let it block the release. Like worst case scenario, we might just put up a banner that says, "Hey, talks are still a work in progress, but please try it out." It's the best way to see what Jupyter AI looks like today.
And
Yeah.
sorry, so I guess like if anyone from the community would be interested to review API changes that we will release, please do. We would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out a way to like include the change log inside of the official documentation as part of the release process. Um, yeah, we need to figure that out. Um, yeah, like, but basically, like, I want there to be a page on the Jupyter AI Docs page that says like what are like here's what the major new features are, and here's the all the API breaking changes we've made. Um, yeah, would love to get that set up too. I'm trying to I think like an AI workflow for that one makes the most sense. But also another thing is like I want the Jupyter AI release notes, like the change log, to include all of the changes in the sub packages. So like everybody has like links to those PRs. It's not just like totally invisible. Um, yeah, we'll have to think about that. Cool. Um, yeah. So all that is to say, Jupyter AI v3.1 is coming out this week. It's going to be much better. It'll show a UI for token usage. It'll have model selectors, general settings selectors, and also app mentioning kind of goes away now. I think that was one of the most confusing parts of the Jupyter AI experience, where like sometimes the AI persona would respond, but other times it wouldn't. Now it's a lot simpler. Like whatever you see inside of the chat UI now, there's like a little drop down that you can use to pick the persona. That one is always going to be the one that responds. So there's no more ambiguity. You can literally see who's going to respond and what model it's going to use. So yeah,
Is there
overall, it'll be
is there
fine.
currently will the new one have it, or does the old one have it, where you can add multiple and both of them will kind of consider it?
No. So that is like technically a regression, feature regression is like you can't at mention multiple personas. The reason for that is like we never fully fleshed out the multi-persona experience. Like when you at mention multiple personas, it would just try to invoke all of them in parallel. I think like it's very rare that that is actually what the user wants. Um, like even for multi-agent orchestration use cases, like I think like the most common pattern that we're finding is that you're talking to like one main agent, and then that agent has the ability to invoke other agent, other AI personas. But you're still talking to like one AI
Okay.
persona still gets the initial message, right?
But
So
can you still add, instead of using the, if you want to like for one message override it, does it still support it?
for one message, what do you mean?
Like, so you have a default persona you're talking to, but like just for one message you want
Yeah,
to
yeah,
talk to
yeah, yeah.
another
You
one.
can switch them. You can switch them at any time.
Yeah,
So
but I'm
right
just mean like
now,
normally if you're using the keyboard as your main thing, having to go and
yeah,
click with the mouse on a little thing is like a speed
I
bump. So
understand.
if you could just, if that was the main way you did it, but like, and if an app could override it,
Yeah.
if somebody still
Well, the
used
tricky
that,
thing, yeah, the tricky thing is that like
it conflicts with
when
the
you
other ad
add,
usages.
yeah, the app usage right now, the story is like you can still at mention other human users, and in that case, like no AI persona should respond. Um, yeah, but I agree with you. Like, I think the workaround for that is to have a keyboard shortcut for selecting the persona for a one-shot message, right? And like switching it back right after. Um, so what we have here is I have a, oh, no, that's not the right link. That's the issue. But I have a PR for is like adding keyboard shortcuts to the persona controls. Right now, it's been a little bit tricky to get this working. I'm not like super confident in it, and I don't really, um, I'm not sure if it should block the release. But yeah, that's something to consider. I would love to work with you to think about like what the right experience is. Like maybe dropping at mention is a little excessively harsh. Like maybe what we could do is like you can at mention one AI persona, and then just for that message, it like overrides which persona responds. I think it's tricky though, because then it's like whose settings do we show in the input toolbar? Um, yeah,
So,
but
David, before we remove the ad mentioning and like between I added the selection control and we removed the ad mentioning, I had this custom logic that would essentially parse all the ad mentions, and the last persona would be like mentioned, would be set as an active. You know, that could be switched to a first persona, be set to an active, or some other heuristics, right? But just to kind of like highlight the user experiences that we could consider. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that this behavior is very much subject to change. I do want to like get this out in front of people because we've gotten a lot
Yeah,
of
no,
complaints about the
I wouldn't
image.
block the release on it. I was just thinking out loud.
Hmm. Well, it's something that's like bothered me too, right? It's like obviously we don't want any minor release to have a feature regression. And if there are, like, there needs to be very good reasons for that. I think like the main gap is like the need for a keyboard shortcut. And I think like not necessarily a keyboard shortcut, but like perhaps like one easy way of like, okay, I have a default model, but
So
just for this one message, I want to send it to another AI persona. I do see the point there.
the yeah, for the advantage with the at there is that it also stays in the history. So like if you shut down your server session and you start later on and it kind of reloads the context, it will know that, oh, this previous message was for another thing, so it kind of better understands the history.
Mm,
Unless you somehow tag that with the current selection.
yeah.
Like if you switch the selection now, does it tag the history somehow that these messages were for these and these personas? Because that can kind of
It's stored in a message metadata. So like the way it works now is like whatever controls you have selected inside of the input toolbar now. So like now you have like a drop down for the persona and then the model for that persona, the settings for that persona. All of those settings are stored inside the message metadata. So like we definitely do have a way to render this in the UI. So like we can basically create like a fake at mention if it's important to see that in the conversation history of who replied. I think that like for a lot of use cases, that's not going to be super important because like personas, like you send a message and then if an AI persona responds right after, then it's pretty obvious which one was supposed to respond to your message. I think like it gets more tricky when multiple users are calling different AI personas at the same time because then the messages get interleaved. But the proper story around that, in my opinion, is to have like some kind of threads UI that makes it really clear, um, like which response is going to which message. Right now, we don't really have that. Yeah, yeah, great points though. And this is exactly why we need a usability console around Jupyter AI, right? Like, I think like yeah, there are a lot of these like ideas around like how the experience should work that we absolutely need more feedback on. Um, yeah, cool. Um, anything else to discuss? We have 5 minutes left, but I don't see any other updates on the agenda.
just I see the latest VS Code release has this agent host protocol that is supposed to be like a layer on top of ACP. I don't know if anybody saw that and has any thoughts whether that would be useful for Jupyter as well, or I just quickly skimmed it. So it's just
Ooh, you share the link?
it's like
What is it?
the latest VS Code release change log, I think. So I don't have a link on my
Yeah, let me see. So wait, what the agent
basically a
host
protocol they're
runs?
building themselves and releasing as they go. So it's a little bit, it's very new and whatever. But I just
Agent
saw it.
host protocol.
I think that's what it's called. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's supposed to be complementary to ACP and not competitive. So
Another protocol. Another open standard. Love it. Hey, thanks for sharing this video. I have no idea what this is about, but this certainly looks interesting. Um, I don't know. To me, it does seem like this has a lot of overlap with agent client protocol, but maybe I'm not fully understanding it.
somewhere in the docs, there's like a separate thing where it says like this is not. It's like age. Yeah, and if you go to the guide and then on the left, under more, there's AHP and ACP, which kind of outlines how they're it's like a separate layer. And ACP is a basically they're the
Yeah.
inverse of each other. Is what they're claiming. I don't know. So, and also this is a Microsoft standard, so who knows what they're
Yeah.
saying and what it actually does might or might not always overlap. Just thought I would flag it.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I'll have to. Yeah, well, we'll take a look at this. I mean, if it gets any adoption beyond VS Code, I think it definitely makes sense to integrate this with Jupyter AI, or at least see how we could integrate this.
Yeah.
But
As I said, I don't even know if it applies to Jupyter AI. I just
yeah, I don't know. I think it's good to try and integrate with as many open standards that make sense, like, yeah, cool, cool.
All right. If Andrew dropped, who stops the recording?
Ooh, that's a great question. Does someone have to take over host, I guess? Host tools. No, I don't have it.
Terry, you?
Recording.